Films are an incredible thing, and it's been amazing to watch the transformation of this art form. In the last decade alone, we've seen movies filmed in one take. We've seen aliens and animals come to life with mocap technology. And we've even seen films recreate the looks and feel of the past. Despite these monolithic visual achievements, there's been very few changes on a storytelling level. And today, I want to talk about a certain story structure from the past that has emerged in a new way. One day after watching Alex Ross Perry's newest feature, Her Smell, I saw a review describing how the character's depth and progression throughout the film was disingenuous and was cheated by skipping over so-called crucial character moments within its unique structure. You see, Her Smell is split up into 5 chapters, with each chapter taking place in real time within a crucial moment of protagonist Becky Something's life. The film takes place over a few years, and due to this style, we do miss out on a lot of information and development, but in my opinion, it doesn't make her journey any less impactful. In fact, I thought the storytelling by Perry and Her Smell was profoundly emotional. I saw this argument pop up once again with Avengers Endgame's off-screen development, calling the 5-year time jump and the effects on its characters lazy writing. So I went to Google and fell down a deep rabbit hole of negativity regarding this choice. It went beyond movies to TV shows and books, but overall I feel off-screen development is generally regarded in a negative light. So it got me thinking about other films that followed this formula and see whether this choice was detrimental or an improvement to the film overall. In the end, along with Her Smell, I'll also be discussing 2 of my favorite movies of the last decade. Steve Jobs, directed by Danny Boyle, and Moonlight, directed by Barry Jenkins. I believe this structure gets a bad rap due to the way it's framed. We all love a good protagonist, and we want to see them overcome all the obstacles and trials that will make them grow as a character. When you put it this way, the complaint is understandable, but I think when you reframe it as capturing the cause and effect of somebody's life, the beauty of it begins to avail. So let's start with Moonlight. Moonlight is broken up into 3 distinct chapters, named Little, Chiron, and Black. Moonlight is the story of Chiron and his battle with his sexuality and identity. Through these 3 chapters that span over several years, we get to see the most crucial moments of this journey. The first chapter shows Chiron at a young age, in which he first meets Juan, a drug dealer. Juan becomes a mentor type figure to Chiron and teaches him about the importance of deciding who you're going to be. This theme of identity becomes increasingly present throughout the rest of the film, despite jumping further and further away from this initial scene. In chapter 2, Chiron is in high school, more aware of his identity and sexuality, but suppressing it from those around him. He deals with constant harassment from bullies and his mother, until one night at the beach. This moment is everything. Hanging with his friend, he is finally able to physically and mentally release all these emotions built up inside of him. When this bit of hope is painfully betrayed, he releases those emotions as well. So overall, there are 3 crucial scenes in this film's second act. His first touch, the devastation of this relationship, and the retaliation. Then we enter the third act. Now this is the biggest jump of the film, and is the best showcase of the cause and effect structure I'm talking about. We meet an unrecognizable Chiron, big and intimidating. Chiron is the complete opposite of his previous self. However, through his interactions with his mother and long-lost love, Kevin, Barry Jenkins slowly peels back the layers and walls Chiron has built up. It's a film that, despite jumping across years and missing other crucial moments, it remains a focused and intimate portrayal of this character. A journey of one coming to terms with his identity across many years. Steve Jobs is a film that avoids the traditional biopic cliches in the best of ways. Instead of following Steve Jobs throughout his whole career, instead, much like Her Smell, we only see him at 3 moments in his life. All of these take place in the high-stakes, frantic nature of the debut presentation right before the launch of a new product. Through these 3 sections spanning over many decades, we see Jobs and how he interacts with his family, friends, workers, and rivals. With each of these dynamics changing drastically as each new act appears. Through these interactions, we see Jobs as the ruthless and condescending genius, while also sometimes seeing an earnest and flawed man trying his best. These events always begin with the audience playing catch-up, as we are thrust right into the effects of issues that happened off screen, seeing only the effect of the cause. However, for this movie, it works, not only because it ramps up the tension, but it allows us to see these characters act in their purest nature because of the intense scenarios, an unbridled look and deconstruction of Steve Jobs no traditional structure could allow. And finally, Her Smell. Alex Ross Perry's latest film is broken up into a staggering 5-act structure. We see the band called Something and its lead performer, Becky Something, as the band is ripped apart and sewed back together again over the span of several years. The first 3 acts explore the destructive downfall of Becky, a new mother who has begun to lose her mind from addiction and paranoia. It's a hard watch to see each act become progressively more vile and overbearing, until Becky's coked up and blood-dripping final performance. In the next 2 acts, we lay witness to a jarring difference in spectacle. The first 3 acts take place backstage and in recording studios, and they have an overbearing sound design, harsh lighting, dizzying cinematography, and frequent editing. However, the 4th act takes place a couple of years later at Becky's house, as she is recovering from her various addictions. This act, unlike the first 3, is slow, patient, and thoughtful. It jumps through a lot of Becky's recovery, but the film knows that's not the most important part. This act isn't about that Becky has recovered from her addictions, but that she's recovering and mending the relationships that have broken from her actions. The film follows the Freytag's pyramid of dramatic structure, which describes the way in which a play is split up into 5 acts: the exposition, the rising action, the climax, the falling action, and finally, the denouement, in which the final plot threads of the film are resolved. All these films share a commonality which can be described as plot over story. To put it simply, story is generally when a character is at the forefront of the story, rather than some end-of-the-world scenario or a crime that has to be solved. In Moonlight, Steve Jobs, and Her Smell, the story is about the protagonist and how over many decades they confront and change their identities and issues. It's hard to capture this kind of scope, and why I think these directors make an excellent choice with this framing device. Oddly, the framing devices in these stories are more similar to something you would find in theatre instead of film. Her Smell uses a Shakespeare-like structure, and similarly to Steve Jobs, stays in one location for a large amount of time, allowing its characters to go back and forth with sharp dialogue which highlights the relationships and personalities of these characters in a very natural way. And funnily enough, despite being the most cinematic of the 3, Moonlight was originally developed as a play before being turned into a feature film. With the structure of theatre and the technical and creative ambitions of film, these movies become a truly unique and special examination of life. In each act, we can skip over years because the most important thing is the character. We can't see everything, but we see what's most important. We get to see the beautiful and distinct moments that make these characters feel warm inside. We get to see the life-shattering lows that devastate them. These films are an indescribable portrait of a character. So whether these characters are pop stars, tech billionaires, or a kid from Miami, these films allow us to understand and empathize with them in an unparalleled way. These films don't need to show everything, they just need to capture the essence of a life.